2019 was completed with some strong and determined predictions of how this new decade would bring about change and development in the world of personal branding, marketing, and photography. This clash of ideas and predictions were dashed as 2020 actually delivered an unprecedented turn of events that put all of these predictions upside down and inside out. Today, we revisit the Influencer Trends 2020 in review. In this here part 2, we're re-examining my trend prediction all about behind the scenes and photography. Okay, so here are some of the predictions I made this time last year about 2020 when it comes to behind the scenes and photography. Let's play them back together and see if I was spot on or totally wrong. I made this prediction about behind the scenes as an overall wider trend.
It seems, as a human race, we are still fascinated by ourselves. And by that, I mean we want to know all of the nitty-gritty behind the scenes before we make a judgment on whether we like a person, on whether we want to trust a product, or whether we want to try out a new service. This is a hot trend that I think is going nowhere in 2020. And I also predict that over the next decade, we're going to see this trend evolve and immerse itself even more into our brains, imaginations, and the way that we interpret visuals. Now, there is still quite a lot of resistance about showing behind the scenes and jumping on this trend, especially with my fellow creative industries. But when you alter your mindset around it, it can be such a winner at gaining an increased respect in your honed skills. Let's think of an imaginary metal worker then. So this particular metal worker has a real modern take on the way that she creates all of her different metal sculptures or pieces in commerce to displays that she has in galleries, right? And she is so on board with the behind the scenes trend that she's open enough to share with you all the different sources of her inspiration. So she might share a particular poem with you on her Instagram feed. She might go to B&Q and love the texture of an anaglypta or the way that a paint has created a mottled effect, and she shares that with you on Instagram. And then she takes you to the next layer, which is realizing all of these different inspirations in a really cool sketch. And she does a very rough sketch, a little bit more of an in-depth sketch, and then the final piece, which is almost like a blueprint before she goes into the workshop. And all of this is fully documented, so you can see how her creative process has evolved. Jump forward in time then to when this particular metal worker announces that she's running a workshop for everyday members of the public who have no experience whatsoever with metalwork to come along, spend some time with her, get to know her in person, and create this one particular example. Let's just say, for instance, it's a really cool door knocker and you get to go and learn how to do it. She teaches you all of the tricks of her trade. That final customer is going to walk away with a unique door knocker and an experience that has been tied into the fact that they made it. It's going to be a talking point for years to come for them. But from the creative side, that person is walking away with a much deeper respect and knowledge of all of the skills that that metal worker has honed over the years. They are going to be a lot more likely to invest on a bigger scale for a piece of metalwork because they understand the process. This is the real joy of the behind the scenes action when you're in the creative industries. So if you've been reluctant to share it because you're frightened that someone's going to steal your ideas or they're not going to get the way that you are in your creative funk and groove, then this is something you should definitely think about jumping on and getting more involved with in 2020. I promise you, you will not be sorry.
So you can see here I predicted that we would see an evolution of this over the coming decade. 1 year in, I got this spot on. The resistance I mentioned in last year's episode was a really interesting indicator in how much different brands leaned in or avoided the technique of behind the scenes this year. In fact, I'd be willing to go as far to say that the brands that embraced this the most are actually the brands that have survived the tumultuous year the best. It's worth referencing the levity and braver humour approach that some larger brands chose to take this year, Great examples of this are with US brand Aviation Gin and the UK's Sipsmith Gin brand. Both use humour to lift the spirits, get it, of their consumers this year. I don't know about you, but I was enthralled during lockdown to see how British supermarket brands rapidly advanced their ability and their bravery with the idea of behind the scenes in 2020. We saw some really old-fashioned and frankly laughable immediate response ads where we saw overweight, middle-aged white CEO men telling us that they promised to keep us safe while shopping in their stores. However, within what felt like a week, the same cameras had completely switched up their angles, and we were now being assured by the more diverse and everyday members of staff who actually worked in the stores about what was going to happen to keep us safe while we shopped there. An astronomical leap forward in behind the scenes techniques there within a very short period of time. Let's hope that this continues. British supermarkets, I'm looking at you. The desk selfie. The desk selfie became a real thing this year in the world of photography and the idea of behind the scenes. I don't know about you, but I attended a lot of online conferences this year where the prompt to shoot and share a desk selfie with the event hashtag and put it on my social media was often a request from the more savvy speakers or hosts of online events. Taking the brave leap to share a desk of pandemonium is a new evolution of behind the scenes. More vulnerability and realness is finally starting to trend in social media photography. Woohoo! Zoom Life, going with no dress pants was a thing, and attending high-level meetings in casual lockdown wear became totally acceptable this year. As this novelty has now become normalcy, we are all a lot more open to seeing someone's cat invade a Zoom meeting, and we don't judge their professionalism for it because we relate. Virtual photo shoots. I made a choice this year to avoid the quick response trend of some photographers trying to conduct their photo shoots in a 100% virtual way by directing their subjects on how to angle a phone or camera to take the shot in their home. For me personally, this goes against the precise control I have over my own photography aesthetic. I saw a couple of examples where I felt it had worked really well, but sadly, the vast majority of these shoots for me came out to be quite substandard and ultimately did the professional photography industry way more damage than good. Photo shoots behind protection. My good mate Rankin was hot off the blocks this year in leading the photography community response to COVID and lockdown. He went straight out there and shared so much great content about how he was creating safe shooting environments with really clever use of perspex and advanced PPE. So if I do say so for myself, my prediction of the behind the scenes evolution was spot on. I can't wait to see way more vulnerability and realness develop over the coming year and decade. So tell me, where are you at when it comes to creating behind the scenes content? Let me know below in the comments. This was a Moi TV Bulletin production. These corresponding episodes are here for your viewing pleasure. Sit back and enjoy. Until next week, goodbye.